Okay, now that we're logged into our machine, the first thing we need to cover is going to be DNS. Now, since we're going to be scanning email for an Exchange server, we don't actually want our Exchange server in DNS as an MX record. We don't want people actually sending emails to our Exchange server. Unfortunately, the Exchange server can really get bombarded with spam and viruses and just emails you don't want, and really bog it down quite a bit. So do not put the Exchange server into DNS as an MX record. What you need to do is you need to set your MX record to the Qmailtoaster machine. That way all email will come into the Qmailtoaster machine. You probably want to set up an A record for your Exchange server though. That way your users can still reach it from a friendly name such as exchange.qmailtoaster.com or webmail.qmailtoaster.com. They can access it by a friendly name by using an A record like that. That way they can still use their Outlook web access and some other utilities that Microsoft puts out that are also web-based. That is a good idea. So once again, we're going to set up in a DNS an MX record. We're going to use domain.com, and we're going to set that MX record to the IP address of the Qmailtoaster machine, the public IP address. In this machine's case, this one's using a private IP, but in DNS you would set the MX record with a priority of say 10 to 192.168.76.76. That way all email will come into the Qmailtoaster machine. Your SPF record, since you're going to be sending out through the Exchange server, you want to make sure your SPF record does reflect your Exchange server's IP address. Otherwise, if you do set up your SPF and you don't put your Exchange server's IP address in there, other mail servers, such as mine when you send me an email, will mark you up in the spam category because you're sending from an email that is not authorized in SPF to send email for your domain. And you can read up more on SPF. If you go to the wiki, which is wiki.qmailtoaster.com, there's a whole bunch of information on there about SPF and how to set that up. Just remember, you want to set up your Exchange server in your SPF. That way it's allowed to send outgoing. And other than the A record for your Exchange server, that's really about it. And once you get DNS all set up and propagated, you want to come back to your Qmailtoaster machine here, or do this prior to changing DNS. That's fine too. And we're going to use domain.com. So we need to go and we need to tell Qmailtoaster to accept email for domain.com initially. So we're going to go into our /var/qmail/control directory and get a directory listing here. And we need to edit the receipt hosts file. And in here, we are going to add domain.com. And what this does by putting this in the receipt host file is it tells your Qmail machine that it is allowed to accept emails for domain.com. We'll save and we'll exit out of there. Now normally what would happen is this would be the endpoint for your caching mail server, and emails would come in for domain.com. Qmail would look at the receipt host file and say, oh yeah, domain.com is in there, so I'm allowed to get email for them. So it goes ahead and accepts email. Well, then the Qmail send process looks at it and says, well, this is not a local domain, I need to send it somewhere else. So basically acting kind of like a little Dropbox or a courier. And it will then do a DNS lookup to try and find out where to send email for domain.com. Now this will pose a problem since our Exchange server does not have an MX record. There's no way for the Qmail machine to do a DNS lookup and figure out where the next hop is to hand the mail off. So what we need to do is we now need to edit our SMTP routes file, which you probably don't have one initially, which is fine. This is one of those options that is not configured or running until you actually create the file and put information in there. So we'll go ahead and we'll get into this file. Now this one, what we're going to do is we're going to put in domain.com, because that's the domain we're accepting email for, colon, and now you can either enter the friendly address for your Exchange server if you set up an A record, like if it was exchange.qmailtoaster.com, you would put that in there, or you can just put the IP address in. We're going to use exchange.qmailtoaster.com for this example. Now, depending on how advanced you want to do your Exchange server configuration, you can also now put in here :25. And what this will do is this will tell Qmailtoaster to accept email for domain.com. That was done in the receipt host file. Now in the SMTP routes file, which is the one we're in now, it takes the email for domain.com and then sends it to this address, which this can be an A record or it can be an IP address, either one. And then what this :25 does is it just tells our Qmailtoaster machine to send the email on port 25. Now, if your email is on port 25, you really don't need to put that in there. It's assumed that you're going to use port 25 because, well, that's the email port. That's the way it's supposed to work. But if you did some advanced configuration on your Exchange server and you changed the port from 25 to, say, 555, you would put in :555. Make sure this port is open in your firewall on your Qmailtoaster machine, and now it would accept email for domain.com, send it to exchange.qmailtoaster.com on port 555. Just to reiterate there, if you're using port 25, you don't need to put anything in there, but you're more than welcome to. Now there are some other options, like if you need to relay your mail back out to send it somewhere else or to log it into a different email account, like you're sending your email to your Gmail account or whatever, in addition to the port 25 or :25, you can also then do your user and your password. And now what this will do is this will take the emails, it'll accept email for domain.com, send it to exchange.qmailtoaster.com, and it'll try and authenticate for SMTP authentication using the username user and the password password. Obviously you can do user@domain.com or user@gmail.com and then whatever your password is. And then Qmailtoaster will try and send the email using those credentials to log into the remote SMTP server using authentication and send email back out. That's pretty advanced stuff. Most people aren't going to use that. This is pretty much exactly here what you're going to need to use to scan incoming emails for spam and viruses for an Exchange server. We'll go ahead and we'll save this file and exit out. And now the last thing you need to do is you need to do qmailctl restart, just to restart Qmailtoaster. Make sure that the daemons are up and running, which you can see they all are. No, actually some of them haven't even gone back down yet. Well, that's because we restarted it. We didn't stop it. So all it did was it restarted the SMTP and the send process, which that's perfectly fine there too. You can also do qmailctl stop, which will bring all the services down. And then start, which will bring all the services back up. Or if you're still stuck in the Windows world, you can always reboot. That one's always a sure winner. At this point, our Qmailtoaster machine will now accept emails for domain.com, scan them for spam and viruses, and then send them off to exchange.qmailtoaster.com. Now remember that it's going to still use the Spam Assassin configuration file located in /etc/mail/spamassassin in the local.cf file, which is the configuration file for Spam Assassin. And when it gets emails in for domain.com, if they get above a score of 5.0, it's still going to rewrite the header and mark it as spam. So that way you know at a glance that, hey, this message is probably junk. So we'll quit out of there. And then it's also still going to use the sim control file here, which you can define here. Well, actually, we'll go ahead and we'll edit this to show you some more advanced stuff you can do. Of course, if I spell it right, it would work better. And by this default, what it's going to do is it's going to accept email. It's going to check it for viruses, check it for spam. If it scores above a 5, it's going to mark it as spam. If it scores above a 12, it's going to delete it. And then it's going to hand it off to exchange.qmailtoaster.com. Now, if you want to fine-tune this, what you can do is you can go through and you can edit, you can add domain.com, clam equals yes, comma, spam equals yes, comma, spam underscore hits equals 8, and I'll leave off the attach part since that's not really relevant. We're not sending email through here. But you would, what the attach equals part is there, you would define any extensions you do not want to allow as attachments. Which MP3, that's just for legal purposes. .bat and .pif files, those are for Windows, to keep rogue programs from running on there. Exchange by default, or Microsoft Outlook by default will not allow .com or .exe files. Although you can put .com and .exe in there just to make sure those are blocked. But now, as soon as I fix that dash to equal sign, what it's going to do is it's going to accept email for domain.com. It's then going to run it through Spam Assassin to check for viruses. It's going to run it through Spam Assassin to look at its spam. But now with this spam hits equals 8, what it's going to do is any message that scores after 5 is going to get marked as spam, but any message that scores above 8 is going to get deleted. So you can add domains in here like that. You can actually put in even individual email addresses and fine-tune it a lot more that way. And we will go ahead and we will save out of there. And then it's always a good idea to do a qmailctl restart, just to make sure everything's up and running the way it's supposed to be. And at this point, you now have a Qmailtoaster machine that is going to accept incoming emails for domain.com, scan them for viruses and spam, mark them if they score above 5.0 as spam. If they score above 8.0, it's going to delete them, and then it's going to send them off to exchange.qmailtoaster.com. And then the Exchange server can deliver it to whatever mailboxes or whatever Exchange servers actually do with the email besides lose them. And that's pretty much it for this video. That should cover the user request. If you have any other questions, you're more than welcome to shoot me an email or join the mailing list. That's always a good one too. We have a lot of really intelligent individuals on there that I won't say love answering questions, but they're definitely willing to answer questions. So we thank you for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video.